The tree farm now is named Ellis Family Forest. The tree farm's 195 acres here in the Gig Harbor Peninsula. We got here in 1956, and the tree farm has been certified by the American Tree Farm Program since December 1962. It's a second and probably third growth Douglas fir, primarily, but my mother, having been a good plants person in New Jersey, was very aware that just Douglas fir was not the best way to go to have a healthy forest. So her goal was to make this a very diverse forest that was really good habitat for all the critters that were being chased out of their home habitat. So we wrote a conservation easement that went into effect in 1991, I believe, that was designed to make sure that the land would be kept primarily forested in perpetuity.
So Katie's been great to work with because she's got this forest which has some pretty big older trees, and her management goals are to keep growing those trees even bigger. So most of the forest is really dense and nothing's been done to it for several decades. So what we're doing right now is coming in and doing essentially a first entry thinning, and then ideally we'd come back in 10 to 20 years and do another thinning. And in that case, we could actually create some more variability, more heterogeneity in the forest, which will open up some small gaps in some areas that are more dense. It'll give room for younger trees to regenerate and get a multi-story canopy, with the eventual goal of having a forest with more old growth conditions.
There's a very nice small lake here. In the 1970 edition of Lakes of Washington, it was described as 5 acres. It's a seasonal stream that feeds it from the north. There is lots of wildlife around. The most conspicuous wildlife is probably the wood ducks on the lake. My neighbor, Steve Reed, has been very active in putting in nest boxes and feeders. He also has a dog, so he doesn't have the same problem I do with when the bears are up and around, the feeder goes down. I hope we'll be able to find the raccoon in his tree in one of the areas that was recently thinned. The bald eagles are a regular company. There are, I guess I'd say, biotic challenges and people challenges. There's a substantial root rot pocket.
Yeah, so there is some root rot on this property, as is common with a lot of older Doug fir dominated forests. And the approach that we're taking here is to thin as heavily as possible around that root rot pocket to give the remaining trees that are alive, they may be infected, but they're still healthy, give them the best chance to survive as long as possible and to fight off the infection. And then in the long term, to allow other species that aren't as susceptible to establish in those pockets. So here we're already seeing western hemlock and western red cedar doing pretty well in those pockets, as well as red alder.
Favorite part of my tree farm? I think it's wherever I am, wherever I notice something new, whether it's walking around the lake and seeing that the red flowering currant buds are really swollen and just about to open, or when I get over there and it's in full bloom. If I were to die today, it would pass completely unencumbered to Great Peninsula Conservancy, the land trust that holds the conservation easement on it. I have no reason to think that that's not what my choice would be if I wrote my will again today or in a year or however long I have to live. I think that they have the tools for maintaining a difficult to keep chunk of forest in the midst of this urbanizing peninsula. And they've been great partners as I've gotten into all the management that's happening now.